Namaste and good morning, all of you. Let's start our Thursday class. And today's class is the summary of the Upanishad, which we have been trying to understand. And the name of the Upanishad is Taittiriya Upanishad. Okay. So let's start the class with some prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bho Bhuva Swaha, Tatsavitra Varenayam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Diyo Yo Naha Prachodayat, Asto Ma Satgamya, Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya, Mrityurma Amritam Gamya. Om Sehna Vavatu Sehna Bhunaktu Seviryam Karvavahi Tejasvi Navadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahi. Om Shanti 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 Om. Taittiriya Upanishad. This is part of the Yajurveda. It has 3 chapters, and the chapters are called Valis. Vali means a creeper. There is a beautiful story which is not mentioned in the Upanishad, but it is mentioned in the Vedas. And let me go through this story for you. And from this story, you can understand why the name is Taittiriya and why we found it very difficult to understand. Because there was not much coherence between one chapter to the next chapter. Thousands of years ago, in a scenic hermitage in the deep dark of the Indian jungle, a student quarreled horribly with his teacher, the Guru. You know the verse we recite, which goes like Om Sehna Vavatu, Om Sehna Bhunaktu, Seviryam Karvavahi. Over there, we are praying to God that we should never quarrel with our teacher. But it happened to be that teacher and the student, they quarreled. The teacher's name was Visham Payan. And the student was Yagvalkya. You are familiar with these 2 names. So there was such kind of a quarrel that the teacher told the student to return him the Veda he had been taught, because he had proved an unworthy student. The student was very furious too, but he was duty bound to obey his teacher. So Yagvalkya vomited the entire Yajurveda on the forest floor. The other students in that class, they saw the opportunity. They were looking at this great showdown in horror, because nobody likes to see the quarrels. They turned themselves into the birds, the sparrows. As sparrows, they sucked up as much as they could of what was vomited by Yagvalkya. Later, these students, individually and collectively, pass on Yagvalkya's understandings of the sacred Veda to their own students. That's why I always say that every student is a future teacher also. So in the form of this Upanishad. That is a very stomach-turning story. The quarrel between a teacher and the disciple. Titri in the Sanskrit is for a sparrow, Titri. So that's why this is called a Taittiriya Upanishad. So the 3 chapters of this, first chapter is called Shikshavali. Second one is Brahmanandvali. And the third chapter is called Bhriguvali. Vali literally means a creeper. As you can imagine that these 3 chapters as 3 sturdy offshoots of the tree of the Taittiriya Aryanaka. The first chapter, the Shikshavali, Shikshavali gives us very esoteric, metaphysical topics to focus entirely on the Vedic school curriculum. It talks about the phonetics, the right sound, accent, stress, and meter to be used while pronouncing a word or reciting a chant. So this is like a shiksha is given to the students. Also talks about the Om and the 3 very holy vibrations. And in this chapter, we saw the interconnectedness in this world. The Upanishad strongly declare that everything and everyone in the universe is an equal, shining strand in the great web of life. That's where he gave us the example. What connects the earth to the sky? Space. What connects the fire and the sun? Water, he said. What connects the teacher to the student? Knowledge. What connects a mother to a father? A child. He even mentioned what connects the lower jaw and the upper jaw? Speech. So with these beautiful examples, he brings our attention at the microcosmic and the macrocosmic too. So very cleverly, the teacher in the Shikshavali connects the obvious to the somewhat obscure. See, like obvious is a teacher and the student. And obscure is the knowledge. Without knowledge, there is no connection between student and the teacher. So all kinds of small jumps and big leaps of imagination have been used in this chapter. What better way to help students develop these skills than to nudge them towards this fact? After that, in the same valley, 3 holy vibrations are mentioned. And these 3 vibrations, they have become the inseparable part of the Gayatri Mantra today. Originally, these 3 were not part of the original Gayatri Mantra. Bhu, Bhuva, Swa. The sages of the Upanishads compare the three sounds which anyone can chant to different elements of the cosmos. That's how we connect the personal to the universal, by repeating these powerful sounds and at the same time meditating on them too. That's what Taittiriya says. You can master not only your own senses and thoughts, but the entire universe also. You are not only a microcosm of the universe, but the universe itself. Then he said, Bhu Bhuva Swa. Then he added a fourth one over there too. Mahachamasya. I told you that is the name of the Rishi who came up with the Maha also. And he said, Maha is itself Brahma. Bhu Bhuva Swa, the universe. Maha. Maha is the Brahma. As we saw in these verses, the Maha also referred to the cosmic vibration, Om, which is also mentioned in the Mandukya Upanishad, that it is no different than Brahma. Some of these verses were, Bhu is the earth, Swa is the sky, Bhuva. What's in between? But there would be nothing without Maha, the sun. If Bhu is the fire, Swa is the sun, Bhuva, the air that binds them. And he said, Maha, the moon that holds up the sky. So these are the examples he gave us so that we can meditate on them. The Bhu is the rig, Swa is the yajur, Bhuva is the song of the psalm, he said. And in Om, the Maha, the golden armor. So all these examples we learned in this part of the Upanishad. In the Vedic age, as we know, students returned to the real world to take up the real business of life. After spending a dozen years in disciplined study, work, or even play in the Gurukul. They were strapping young men by then when they went to the Gurukul. And once they were done with their education there, they were ready to earn a living, shoulder the responsibilities of a householder's life. And they became the upstanding members of their communities. But before they left their Guru's house, Gurus gave them a set of very stern instructions. Like this one. Practice right conduct while learning and teaching. That means keep on learning more and more. Don't think that you have learned it all. But whatever you have learned, pass it on also. So while learning and teaching, stay true to yourself while learning and teaching. Perform the rituals while learning and teaching. So rituals are very important of our life. Beget children while learning and teaching. Practice austerity, self-control, tranquility, compassion while learning and teaching, So that's how the life should be for a human being, learning and imparting to the students. But control yourself though. That's why austerity, self-control, and tranquility and compassion, these should be part of our life. In other words, the teacher in the Taittiriya is saying, live a full, rich, and upright life. But never ever stop learning and passing on what you have learned. Remember that. Whether you're a student or a teacher, self-learning, which is called swadhyay, is vital. Because the pursuit of knowledge, when it becomes a joyful, lifelong enterprise, that you are not bored. You'll never get depressed. You will keep your brain agile, and you will stay engaged with a constantly changing world. And as for teaching, because learning is that, swadhyay, teaching is pravachan. That is super important too. It's not only you're passing on to the knowledge, because that is a noble act in itself, but it's also one of the best ways to get a better understanding of what you have learned. The best teacher has to be a best student also. It goes hand in hand. You have to know something really well before you can teach it to someone else. More importantly, one in the absence of the other is incomplete. Because if you have not learned, how can you teach? So gaining knowledge without passing it on is selfish. If you think that it's only mine, I'm not going to give it to somebody else, then you have failed as a student also. So simply passing on what you learned a long time ago without bothering to update your knowledge with the recent information is also wrong. It will be a disservice to both, to yourself and to the student also. So that's why even as a Karam Yogi, we got to become skillful in whatever we are doing. Keep on increasing your skill, no matter what you are doing. We got to learn how to take these two together. That's what Upanishad tells us. Swadhyay, pravachan, they are magic. Try it and see. This is not something we only recite. This is something we do. And whenever the students, they leave the Gurukul, there is a commencement speech also. So these commencement speeches or addresses are not a modern invention, because we see it in the schools and the colleges of these days. But those speeches were given to the graduating students even thousands of years ago in Indian Gurukuls. Much has not changed in their content either in those speeches. Let's see exactly what the teacher of the Taittiriya Upanishad told their graduating class. I have a list of it, the whole list, because this is very important part of the Upanishad. Because there is a very good advice for us also. We are students. Do not neglect the truth. That's number one. Today I'm only giving you in English. We talked about it in Sanskrit also earlier. Number one, do not neglect the truth. Number two, do not neglect the law. Wherever we live, we got to abide by the law of that country, place. Do not neglect your health. Remember, health is wealth. Do not neglect your daily swadhyay and pravachan. Do not neglect the rites and the rituals. Whatever ritual you have promised to do not neglect them. They don't have to be complicated unless you want them to be complicated, but do not neglect them. Do earn money. Prosperity is essential to a good life. God has given us 24 hours. According to our stage in life, we got to earn money also. We got to pay our bills. Do not be dependent on anybody else. Number 7, do have children. It is your responsibility to further the race. Then he says, see your mother as a god. See your father as a god. See your teacher as a god. See your guest as a god. If we cannot see God in the mother and the father and the guru, how can we see God in the Atithi? So these were number 8, 9, 10, and 11. Number 12, do only good and irreproachable deeds, not others. Only good deeds. So our karam, they got to be divine. In Gita, we read the word kritatma, good deeds. Follow only good practices, not the others. Number 14, when you are with wise and good people, don't talk or argue unnecessarily. Listen instead. You are there to learn from those wise people. Number 15, when you are with wise and good people, give of yourself generously with faith and humility. Generosity has to be our nature. Number 16, if you're not sure what the right thing to do is in any situation, observe the actions of gentle, law-abiding, wise people around you and do what they do. So that means if you really cannot decide on your own, follow somebody else who's wise. While we are leaving our footsteps, we got to learn whose footsteps we want to walk on. This is what this Rishi is saying. So if you're not sure what the right thing to do is in any situation, observe the actions of gentle, law-abiding, wise people around you. Watch what they do, how they talk, how they walk, how they dress up. Emulate them. And the last one is number 17. If you're not able to decide who is right in a situation, especially when people around you are being critical of one or the other, observe the actions of experienced, qualified, law-abiding, gentle people around you and do as they do. And the Sanskrit part was over there for mother as a god, Matri Deva Bhava, Pitri Deva Bhava, Acharya Deva Bhava, Patithi Deva Bhava. You can and should look up to people who are smart and successful and qualified and cool, of course. But unless they're also gentle. Gentle, that's very important. Aluksha, that is the word in this Upanishad. Be careful about making them your role models. Everybody popular is not worthy of being a role model. Be very careful. That's a wise, heartwarming piece of advice, if there ever was one. Remember that. So this was basically the first chapter. Okay. So you can go back and read it and to see if you draw this from there or not. Shiksha Vali. The second creeper, the second Vali or second chapter is called Brahmanand Vali. Brahmanand, the supreme bliss. In fact, Brahmanand Vali comes at the core Upanishadic question. Who am I really? And declaring that one true self, Atma, lies hidden inside several sheaths. That's what we found out in this chapter. And those sheaths are called the Kosh. It also includes a bliss ladder to explain just how Brahma bliss, topmost rung of the bliss ladder, is compared to the human bliss, which is the bottommost rung. So Brahma bliss and a human bliss. So the Taittiriya Upanishad talks about the self as being veiled in 5 different sheaths. Technical term for this is Panchakosh, 5 sheaths. Even though each sheath, each kosh feels so real that we are often deceived into believing that one of the sheaths is who we are. When you ask yourself the question, who am I? What is the first most obvious answer that comes to mind? The body, of course. I am my body. The color of my skin, the hair, eyes, the way my fingers are, the way my hair frizzes on a humid day, or even the smell of my body or my teeth. We think it's uniquely me. And it could be who I am. But the Upanishad takes a macro view. Says body is made of nothing but food. It is food, after all, that grows your body, makes it possible for it to carry out its functions and give it the strength to do what it does. Whether it's a walk or sit or swim or bicycle. Upanishad says, from food surely are made all creatures. By food alone they live and survive and thrive. And into the food they pass in the end. Food is Brahma, the foremost of all beings. The healing herb, the eldest, most revered, for it is eaten by all beings and eats all beings. Why does he say food eats all beings? Since all beings are food, think about it. When animals and people die, their bodies become part of the earth. Plants grow out of the earth and are eaten by animals and people. Food, or a being whose body is made of food, eats all beings whose bodies have nourished the soil so that new food can grow. That's why there is so much reverence for food in Indian thought. You remember, even today, even though there's a plenty of food on this earth, but we are reluctant to waste it. We don't treat it casually. Our ancestors, they told us that food is Brahma himself. Is your body really you? When we think about it, the body changes every year, every day, every minute. They say that approximately 96 million of your cells die every minute. And 96 million new ones are added within the same time. And it happens so fast without us realizing it. This is how beautiful this body is. But the person you think of as you remains unchanged. So we cannot be this body. We cannot be this anime kosha. Your memory, your intelligence, your awareness tells you that the little baby in that cute picture on the fridge is as much you as the toddler in the album. Or when you went to the 4th grade, or when you graduated from college, or when you got married. Line those pictures up. The bodies don't resemble anymore, but you remained the same. So the Upanishad calls this first sheath, the body sheath, the Annamaya Kosh, food sheath. It's part of you, or you can say part of your personality, but since you can see it and feel it and smell it, it cannot be you. The real you is what is inside. The one which is seeing, the feeling, the smelling, the body. That's why we say body is the object, not the subject. You, the experiencer and enjoyer of the body, are the subject. You are not the body sheath. That's why we need to go a little deeper. That's why Upanishad says the material simply means something that is made out of matter. That is why it's called a material sheath also. Now think about it. What keeps the body alive? Apart from food, sure, we need the food. It's the life breath, pran, without which the body is not inanimate matter. So the next sheath, the next kosh is the pranamaya kosh, the sheath of the life breath. So Taittiriya Upanishad asks us to think of this sheath as also having the shape of your body. This is one very beautiful analysis over here we saw. It's not just a food sheath is this shape. Even the pranamaya kosh is of the same shape. Pran is in the head also and in the feet also. In the fingertips also, tips of the toes also. Same shape of your body with the different breaths taking on different shapes. Pran is the head, he said, beyond the right arm, upon the left, it rests on the earth, this human shape, pranamaya kosh, and is filled with space. breath verily is the life of all beings, he says. The gods live by it, as do men and beasts. It is the true sign of life, the fount of vitality. He says a life breath may be Brahma. But is it you? It is part of your personality, but of course it is, you just refer to it. You can feel your breath. You can observe it if you try, especially during pranayama session. And you can become conscious of it when you want to be, which means once again that your breath is the object, the observed, and not the subject, the observer. And you, on the other hand, are the one looking at your breath. You are the observer, not the observed. So this is, that's how he told us to meditate upon this. Plus, your breath is changing all the time. We take a deep and long breath when we are calm, and ragged when we are sad, shallow when we are stressed, quick and short when we exercise. But the entity you think of you as you is the same. You are unchanging, constant, whether you're breathing or breathing in or breathing out. Because we do the Purak also and the Rechak also. So in and out, we do the Kumbhak also. So we are manipulating our breath. So we cannot be the breath. So ignore when somebody says that you are the Pran or the Pran mein khosh. So that's why this is called a vital sheet. Pran mein khosh. Vital simply means to do with the life, that's vital, or needed for life. We say this is vital for us. It comes from the Latin word vita, V-I-T-A, vita, means life. Since the breath is needed for life, the pranmaya kosh is also called the vital sheath. So if we are not the Annamaya kosh, we are not the pranmaya kosh, we need to go a little deeper. That's what this Rishi is saying. And we will go into that next week. So we are stopping in the middle of the second section. So we'll start with the next sheet. And meanwhile, I would like you to just check this all out and see it makes sense to you or not, based upon the Upanishad which you have, the studies which we did over several weeks. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much for coming and listening.